now, let's take a look at what's making the headlines on the papers around the world this morning. We'll begin as usual with This Day newspaper. There's a lot of headlines here, but we begin with the one on the largest funds. That's Salami, Dr. Doyin Salami, who is the chairman of President Buhari's Economic Advisory Council, says with debt service to revenue at 98%, Nigeria's borrowing unsustainable. He's asking the federal government to sell off 900 billion naira dead assets to enhance physical position. And right on top of that, there's a picture of the FIFA president, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and his wife as FIFA graces Aisha Buhari Cup tournament. And right beside that, you have the military airstrike hits Yobe civilians in error, an unfortunate story that can be continued on page 10. And right on top of that is Okonjo-Iweala named among Time 100 most influential people in 2021, continued on page 6.
Well, next to the Nation, where the paper this morning is focusing on the toll of insecurity, the tolls insecurity is having on schools and education, with a bold headline this morning reading, UNICEF attacks scare 1 million kids from schools. The writer there says parents keep children away in fear of abduction. The striking picture there is that of the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, inspecting a dilapidated bridge somewhere on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Says Lagos Auto Road repairs for completion in December. Good news to the ears of commuters on that road. Many other headlines above the nameplate this morning. Ondo borrows to pay wages, says Akeredolu. Nigerian airstrike kills 10, injures 20 in Yobe. As public officers tour ESSA code allowances for review, inflation drops to 17.01%. And more stories on the front pages of the Nation this morning.
Okay, let's hit you with the Punch now. This bold one. National Assembly defends Buhari's $4.9 billion loan plan. APC-PDP clash over debt. Bread, cereals, others push food inflation to 20.30%. This is an interesting one. Gbajabiamila, Southern secessionists not different from Boko Haram and ISWAP. That's what the speaker is saying. Another headline here from the Minister of Finance. Nigeria piles up 2.36 trillion naira debt stock in 3 months. Those are some of the headlines on the front page of the Punch.
And moving to the Guardian, Nigeria, the top headline there is saying, we'll judge you by the company you keep. The federal government warns Southwest agitators, and there's a picture there of the Yoruba Nation agitators resuming their protest at the United Nations headquarters in New York yesterday. Now, under that headline says, Buhari to address the UN General Assembly on Tuesday. Gbajabiamila denies comparing IPOB, Yoruba Nation agitators, with Boko Haram and ISWAP. Now, just below that is the DMO alerts on default as debts hit 35.5 trillion. Nigeria faces a sustainability challenge if we do not grow revenues, and this is according to the Director General of the DMO, Patience Uniha.
A quick look at the front pages of international papers this morning. Thursday's front pages are dominated by the Prime Minister's reshuffle of his cabinet in the UK. Johnson sacks blundering cabinet allies is the headline in the I newspaper. The I newspaper has that. It says Mr. Raab was angry and refused to accept his demotion from Foreign Secretary to Justice Secretary until he was also given the title of Deputy Prime Minister. Well, the Financial Times also has the same headline. Says Johnson sweeps out his cabinet to revive faith in reform agenda.
And in the Daily Mirror, Boris has a cabinet clear out. The full story on pages 6 and 7. Climate emergency. If we don't act now, this is our future. Harrowing picture right there of a flooded UK.
And on the Daily Mail, still the recurring headline. At last, Boris wields the axe. PMs call failing ministers as new party boss says prepare for election. Boris Johnson stamped his authority on the cabinet yesterday with a brutal reshuffle designed to secure him a second term in power. And just right under the Daily Mail says High Court humbles Prince Andrew over sex case papers. Now, for the press review, we have Emmanuel Bello, who joins us now in our offsite studio. And we'll begin with this day, Emmanuel. There's a headline here that's unfortunate and quite recurrent now. The military airstrike hits Yobe civilians in error. Emmanuel, what's your take on this?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, but then, like we keep saying here, we're at war, and when there's war, you have casualties of war. But again, in error, I mean, okay, you probably can forgive people for making mistakes, but you can't take away from the blunder all this brings to the fore of the entire crisis of fighting the war on terror. So maybe they have to learn from here, but this, I think this is a recurring story. I think we've had this kind of stories before. What have we learned from the past? What are we learning from this one? I think the military authority will have to talk to themselves, because you are hitting targets that you are not supposed to hit, and leaving the ones that you were actually supposed to get. So I hope they learn from this. People can actually say, okay, well, there's error. We are not military strategists here. We don't know what happens. We don't know how this happens. But again, it's not a good day. It's not a good day for the war on terror. And it's sad. It's a sad story. And yes, making it to the front page, I think most people look at that. Our heart goes out to the civilians who are looking for protections, and then, of course, they get hit. But again, there are people that will tell you that it's war, and when you have war, you have collateral damage, you have some of these kind of errors. But like I say, it's something that needs to be checked to forestall another, because this just makes our our enemies very happy that, okay, fine, you see they're after us, but then now they're turning their guns on themselves or whatever. But I pray we don't see this kind of stories again and again in the news.
Well, talking about casualties, Emmanuel, the nation also is focusing on the casualty of insecurity, which it says it's education, and many children may not return to school because their parents are scared.
Very terrible story there, and I think the Nation newspaper did very well by bringing out the statistics from UNICEF, and those are very, very scary statistics. Look at the number of kids out of school, look at the number of people that won't return. It's really, really scary, and I think part of the problem is the general atmosphere. The other day we did a story here about school resuming and the fears the parents were raising about even their safety, and now we are talking about almost 5 states where practically you won't have school. The literal meaning of Boko Haram is that Western education is wrong, or is bad, or it's evil, and all of that. And so without even firing a shot, it seems as if we're getting there, where people don't even want to go to school. And in places where you don't have this crisis, the other day kids were writing WAEC, and then they were sent out. So there's an attack on schools, and it's the worst form of attack during crisis, especially schools. So these are very daunting and very terrible statistics out there, and it's a very terrible, poor report card on the sector, the education sector, and actually reflects very terribly on the nation generally. I think the government this morning, looking at this statistic, the federal government won't be happy with this. It's not a good one. It's not if this is a report card, it's a terrible, terrible one. So what do you do? Well, you have to restore faith in the security around schools. You have to restore faith in the security, not just of the schools, but of course the nation. You have to, because it's gone to this point where UNICEF is giving great clear-cut statistics on how this has affected learning, affected education. No nation can stand this. No nation should take this.
Okay, Emmanuel. Now, speaking of reflecting badly and talking about security, the Punch newspaper is quoting the Speaker of the House. Southern secessionists not different from Boko Haram and ISWAP. That's what Abiamila is speaking, although another paper is saying he's denied.
Yes, the Guardian is saying that Abiamila denies comparing IPOB and the Yoruba Nation to...
So who are we to go with, the papers, or did the speaker actually say this?
I think the speaker will be waking up this morning and happy with what the Guardian did by saying he denied it, but he won't be very happy with what the Punch did by saying that, well, you say this. And, well, it's the back and forth. He will be very happy with the Guardian newspaper for at least reflecting his own side of the story. So unless and until maybe we hear him saying this to us, it's difficult to know.
Person says this is exactly what he said, and I quote, "In the south of Nigeria, east and west, miscreants and criminal masquerade as separatist activists." And he says their refusal to engage in debates or to consider the possibility of dissenting opinions are no different from Boko Haram and ISWAP. So he did mention the south of Nigeria, east and west, although he didn't say IPOB or the Yoruba agitation. What do you make of that?
Well, he can hide behind that now and say, well, I didn't mention any group. I was just talking about agitation. He couldn't possibly, say that. But of course, I'm sure he's going to still come under a lot of flack from various groups. Self-determination has become something there's a protest going on, was going on yesterday. It's become a global thing. I think the speaker will have to be very careful what he says about this. He's not just an ordinary person. He's the number 4th citizen, like they say. And what he says carries a lot of weight. And he's from that part of the country to where such agitations are happening. If I were one of his handlers, or his handlers will ask him to be very careful. But he's trying to sound like a nationalist. He's trying to sound tough too. He's trying to carry the weight of his office as a speaker. So he's torn between that tendency to sound like, I'm a nationalist, I'm a federalist, I believe in the unity of this country, and then of course, on the other hand, he's from that part of the country as an individual where such agitation, I think he finds himself between a very hard place, between the rock and the hard place. So I think if I were the speaker, I will maintain a middle ground, or I will find ways to suggest better how we move ahead given the situation. But then you have the report there. I think today or tomorrow, he probably will have to drop in more clarifications.
Indeed. I can imagine the backlash that may come from this, especially for those who, are in support of this agitation as a result of marginalization. But let's go to the foreign newspapers, Emmanuel, if you wish. Most of them have recurring headlines about UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson reshuffling his cabinet.
Yeah, that is what emerging economies, or rather serious economies or serious countries do. They look at the cabinet, they weigh it, they actually check the cabinet. It took President Buhari 6 years to do the same thing that Boris is doing now. And a lot of people saw the changes the other day, a few weeks ago, in the cabinet. And I was asking that, okay, the president took him 6 years, our president took him 6 years to make 2 changes. People were hoping that he could do more. And you see Boris here stepping in. Elections are around the corner. He needs a cabinet that is going to interpret his agenda better. He needs a cabinet that will work for the people. So that's what serious countries do. They look at the cabinet. You don't get a job and stay there forever. You get checked. And okay. So what is done
Emmanuel
is to see...
Bello, thank you so much for your insight this morning on the press review. And that's our press review for this day on Daybreak.